قرآني نبض حياتي، قرآني طهر ذاتي، قرآني عصمة أمري، قرآني طوق نجاتي. قرآني نبض حياتي، قرآني طهر ذاتي، قرآني عصمة أمري، قرآني طوق نجاتي. آيات الله حمتني غمرتني بالبركات.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد. Respected brothers, I am really honored to be speaking to you. I mean, I've done this for quite a few years now, and it's always such a pleasure to speak to people who are involving themselves in the work of dawah, in the work of spreading the truth, and whatever little I can contribute, whenever there's an opportunity, I always jump to it. In order to set the tone for my discussion today, I want to go back in history. I want to go back to the colonial era. The colonial era in India, as well as in countries like Indonesia, which were countries with very big Muslim populations, but they were ultimately colonized. Now, when the colonists came in, they came in just as with today. Things haven't changed. When the Western colonists came in, they came with only one objective, which was to take everything, to steal as much as they can. Whether it was natural resources, whether it was industries, whether it was labor, and in many cases, like in the northern parts of Africa, even people were stolen. So these guys came in with that objective. And in order to achieve that objective, obviously they have to subdue the local populations because people wouldn't stand up to that. Now they looked at the various populations and they looked at where the threats come from. They did a threat assessment. And they were very clever at this. They were very shrewd and cunning when it came to that sort of thing, to realizing and recognizing where the threat comes from. Because obviously they have to eliminate those threats before they can control those populations. And if they don't eliminate the threat, then all their work is going to go to vain. Because remember, they were minorities, absolute minorities, who were trying to rule over majorities. I mean, in India you had hundreds of millions of people and just 10,000 British. So how do they control such a big number of people? How do they control and subdue such a large population? Now, there's a lot of tricks they used, very, very devious tricks, which they still use up till today. And and I'm going to discuss some of those tricks, because if you know those tricks, then you will know how to counter them. Because a large part of your efforts as people involved in the work of dawah is going to be to recognize those tricks and to obviously work against them. Because remember, as a Muslim, as a da'i, as a person who is trying to give people guidance towards the truth, you are working against these forces. They are massive forces, and they are forces that are well funded with billions and billions of US dollars every year to try and keep Islam subdued. Now, so coming back to the colonial era, the biggest threat they found to their devious plans, the biggest thing that was going to stop their exploitation, their slavery, their injustice was, you guessed it, Islam. And not just Islam, but particularly the Sharia. Because the Sharia stands up for justice. The Sharia stands up for equality. The Sharia stands up for fairness. And it absolutely does not tolerate injustice, and it does not tolerate unfair behavior. even from a Muslim to a non-Muslim. So what these colonists found was that in these Muslim lands, there were non-Muslims living by the millions, and they were living very happily. They were living very comfortably. They were living securely. All they had to pay was the jizya, which was something they needed to pay for protection, for services, just like how we pay taxes these days. So when we pay taxes, the government tells us that it's for security, it's for paying the police, it's for education, it's for healthcare, all that goes into it. So these minorities were living in the Muslim lands, and they were very, very happy, very comfortable, very loyal to the local populations. In fact, the populations were generally very well looked after. There wasn't poverty, there wasn't unemployment, there wasn't exploitation, there wasn't racism, there wasn't zulm, there wasn't colonization, there wasn't genocide. These are all things that came from the West. Remember that. These are all inventions of the West. So anyways, they realized that the biggest threat was Islam, and particularly the Sharia. So they had to eliminate Sharia somehow. But they couldn't just eliminate Islam. They tried that. They tried burning Qurans, they tried massacring ulama in big numbers. But you know that this is something that's protected by Allah Ta'ala, so they will never be able to destroy it. So they couldn't destroy it physically, so then they came out with another idea, that let's turn people's attention away from it. So it's there, and we'll respect it outwardly, but we'll turn the Muslim minds away from the Sharia. And that's a much more devious plan, right? Because it's not a matter of now enmity with the Muslims. They couldn't afford to do that. So what they did was they separated the Muslims from the Sharia. That was the plan. And how did they do this? They did this by spreading some messages. First and foremost, it's something that we still see today in a very big way. They created the stigma around the Sharia law. That's why in the West, when you look at the Western media, when they talk about Sharia law, it's usually, or almost always, it has to do with spreading fear. Oh, you want Sharia law? Sharia law is this, beheading, and this kind of strictness and that kind of strictness. They just pick out a few things, intolerance. But this is a misrepresentation to such an extent, friends, that a lot of Muslims also believe this stuff. They also believe that, Sharia is this harsh ruling system where people are being murdered all sides, like, something you might have found in Soviet Russia. But really, Sharia is the direct opposite of that. So the first thing they did was to spread misinformation and fear about the Sharia, and they made a stigma around it so that people will be terrified about the Sharia. The second thing they did was, once that first step was sort of getting momentum, it was becoming successful. The second thing was they came out with an education system. Now listen to this. This is the most important part. They came out with an education system that limited Islam to just your personal, private practices that you do. So that education system taught them that religion is not something that is supposed to be in the public sphere. It's not supposed to be something that you show publicly. It's something that you do on your own, in the privacy of your home, like an intimate relationship. It's something that you go to church or mosque on a Friday or church on a Sunday. You do your thing there. The moment you come out, then you must homogenize. You must become one with the rest of the population. So their idea of a good society was a society that is uniform, homogeneous. Everybody looks the same. Everybody acts the same. Everybody, especially the women, dresses the same. as it goes with the fashion. So if the fashion says cover up, they cover up. If the fashion says dress down, show skin, then you must do that. So that's the second thing, and that was the most powerful thing, because it was integrated into the education systems. And the education systems of Britain and of the Dutch were enforced in Muslim countries. They absolutely wiped out Islamic education, and they introduced this new education system. But not just that. Let me tell you something else, more devious than all that. It wasn't just in the schools that they enforced this. It was also in the madrasas. In the madrasas, they made sure that the ustad taught people that Islam is something that is private. Religion is something that you practice privately. It's not supposed to be in the public sphere. And by doing this, what did they do? In doing this, what they did was they deleted everything that has to do with the benefits of Sharia in society. The Sharia benefits in society were deleted now. It no longer existed. What kind of benefits? Justice, equality, economic growth for everyone, the zakat system, the Islamic judiciary system, the Islamic economic system, all of that they wiped out. Why? Why was it so important for them to wipe out? So that they could mete out their injustice. They could do whatever they wanted. I mean, think about it like this. There was a special law in India under the British that if a British kills an Indian, it's nothing wrong with it. But if an Indian killed a British, a whole village would be wiped out. That's how bad it was. That's the injustice. They took, not with one hand, they took with two hands, they stole the resources, and nobody could stop them. Sharia would have stopped them. Economically, what they did, and this was very, very shrewd, they found the minority Christians living in these countries, and they empowered them in ways that gave them superiority over the majorities. See, does that sound familiar, guys? Where the minorities have more rights, more wealth, better services, better infrastructure than the majority. Doesn't that sound familiar? They were living in better conditions. They had everything of the best. And the majorities, well, they had to just suffer. So that was why they needed to eliminate Sharia, because Sharia held up the law. The Sharia said no Arab is better than a non-Arab, no white is better than a black, nobody is better than anybody else except in worshipping Allah Ta'ala and in following the way of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in goodness to mankind. Firstly, worshipping Allah, and then following his Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and thirdly, in goodness to mankind. Now, when they achieved this, they were able to go and do whatever they wanted, and they did. They did. The British stole trillions from India. By the time the British left India in the 1960s, the literacy rate of the country was 2%. Yet, India was, before the British, under Muslim law, under Muslim rule, it was one of the richest countries in the world. India produced 20 or 25% of the world's GDP. Just India alone. It was a very, very wealthy and a very educated population. But the British turned it upside down. And when they left, they didn't even live in peace. What they did was, they split up India into three parts, which are today India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Not just that, but they created these two opposing parties, the Muslims and the Hindus, and they left like that, just so that there could be that friction, because that's how they ruled, right? They ruled through divide and conquer. But let's come back to the part about them limiting Islam to just personal life. You see, Islam is a force. Islam is a very powerful force that is there to reform the world. It's there to reform society. Let's not be squeamish about that. Let's not hide away from that fact. Islam is a force for reforming society. It's a force for protecting human beings within a just and a fair society where everybody, no matter their religion, no matter their background, no matter their color, no matter their creed, their religion, everybody is looked after. Nobody is left out. Islam is the opposite of what we see in the West today, what we see in the world today. So what they did was they managed to give themselves complete freedom to do whatever they wanted. Now, when I say they gave themselves the freedom, no one could stop them, just like today, because of their military might, their military power. But coming back to my point, sorry, I digressed. Coming back to my point about making Islam something personal. So they had to contain Islam. And they kept Islam to a few things only. Right, you as a Muslim, we will accept you, we will tolerate you. Go read your namaz, read your salat, do your Ramadan, go to the mosque 5 times a day. But that's it. Don't you dare try and do anything else. Don't you dare try and implement Islamic law anywhere. Don't you dare try as a Muslim to get into any leadership role, into any political role, into any major role as a scientist or a doctor or an engineer or any in academia as a professor. Don't you try any of that as a Muslim. If you do it, shave your beard, wear a suit, and look like us, act like us, talk like us, you're fine. But the moment you do it as a Muslim, you're gone. So they confined Islam just to personal practices. Now, why I'm saying this is because this is very important and relevant today in the Muslim world, particularly when you look here in South Africa. In South Africa, we see the same thing, the same colonized mindset still operating. How? If you go to our schools, Muslim schools, non-Muslim schools, what curriculum are they teaching? The same colonial curriculum. If you look at the activities of Muslims here in this country, in what capacity do most of us act? We act in the capacity of Islam as a private religion. The moment somebody steps out, then you're not just fighting the system, you're fighting the Muslims themselves. The moment you get out of that circle, they tell you, hey, come back, come back, come back. This is not something a Muslim is supposed to be doing. So they redefined Islam to just a few things, just the 5 pillars, that's it. But Sharia is massive, Sharia is huge. It is the same that applies with technology. Up till today, computers have been around since the 1960s. Today, 65, almost 70 years later, we are still debating whether Muslims should be using technology or not. Why? It's because of that circle we've been put into. So some people will sit inside that circle and they say, no, technology, not for us. They'll say things like that. I've been told that. I've been told by one learned person, you see all this technology, that's for the non-Muslims. Let them do all that and then we'll use it in any way we think is fit. Another person told me that the technology in the time of Rasulullah ﷺ was enough for us. We don't need any new technology. That's the kind of statements people are making, and these are learned people. So we are still debating this because we are afraid. Our whole lives we've been told as Muslims that 5 pillars, that's it. You don't go out of this. And so when we see technology out there, it's out of that circle. And the moment a person gets into it, then you hear all kinds of things. You hear things like haram, things like shaitani thing. You hear things like, I don't know. So one day, relating to this, even from my young days, I was a very curious, inquiring person. So one day when I was in Westville University, that time it was called UDW, there's a masjid in the university, and one day for Jumu'ah, of all people, who pitches up there to perform the Jumu'ah and to give the talk? Sheikh Ahmed did that. So I was a university student, and I was curious, and I was also a bit of a troublemaker. So after the bayan, I walked Sheikh back to his car. And I said, Sheikh, see, and this was when? This was in the 1990s, it was 1993. I said, Sheikh, I have a question for you. He said, yes, my son. I said, see, you get a lot of flack from the Muslim community because you go on video, because you make these videos of your debates. What do you say about that? How do you respond? So Sheikh, being the wise person that he was, he asked me a question. He said, son, do you know who I am? I said, yes, you're Sheikh Ahmed Bilal. So he asked me, how do you know me? I said, because I saw your debates. So he said, there, you've answered my question. The fact that you saw me through my videos, and in the same way millions of people around the world saw me through my videos, and as a result of that, they understand my message, that shows the power of that technology. That shows that's the power of the technology, and that's why I use it. Now, Sheikh wasn't using the video to entertain. He wasn't using it for wrong things. He was using it to spread the message of Islam, to take on the incorrect ideologies that were a threat to the Muslims. And he built IPCI in that way. So he was one of those people who dared to step out of that circle. He dared to go and study the books of other religions. That too, we shouldn't be doing in our circle. You see that circle there, 5 pillars. Don't do that. Don't go and study the Bible, haram. Don't go on video, haram. Don't associate with non-Muslims, haram. So, bhai, if you don't going to do all that, then who's going to do it? And that's the problem with our society today. In our society, if you look at the likes of Sheikh Didat, he was fighting against the non-Muslims, but he was also fighting against the Muslims. The Muslims were fighting against him. They cancelled him. No, you're not good enough to be in our community. Now, this is the sad state of our community, and it's not just a South Africa thing. It's a kind of a global thing. A bit worse here in South Africa, but it's a global phenomenon. That the moment you talk about things like getting on technology, getting on social media, you're out of that circle. And so people try to pull you back. If you don't come back, then they cancel you. Cancel culture. Heard of cancel culture? So I want to tell you this. To be a da'i, you have to be a very brave person. When I graduated from Darul Uloom, somebody told me, one senior alim, he said, listen, you're going to need to fasten your seatbelts. I asked him, what you mean? He said, any good work you do, there are going to be those who criticize you and try to tear you down. And if you don't have that, if you never have anybody criticizing you and trying to tear you down, then you're not doing good work. At that time I was young, I didn't understand. Today I'm 50 years old, looking back, I understand that. That not everything you do is going to make everybody happy. Even if it's good work, even if it's work that you are doing within the confines of Sharia, for the pleasure of Allah. And when I say Sharia, I don't mean some people's confined version of Sharia, that you need to dress in a certain way, you need to be in a certain way, you need to just do your 5, not that version of Sharia. I'm talking about the complete Sharia. So you need to be brave and you need to be bold, because the world is waiting for you to give them leadership, and you're going to be asked one day. I don't care who you are, and Allah Ta'ala is not going to care who you are on the day of Qiyamah. He's not going to listen to your excuses. Oh, but I didn't have this. Oh, but I wish I had that. oh, I wish I had this kind of platform, and wish I had that kind of money, and I wish I had this kind of resources. Sorry, friend, Allah Ta'ala is not buying that nonsense. Don't try to sell him that nonsense on the day of Qiyamah. He's going to ask you a simple question. People you associated with, what did you do for their guidance? What did you do to bring them close to me? Nothing? Well, you got a problem then. And if you tried your best, then you'll be good off, inshallah. So what do you do? Which brings me to the next part. The next part is, when we talk about dawah, again, we have a misconception about what exactly dawah is. So the first idea of dawah is going door to door, person to person, and speaking to them about Islam. That is beautiful. That is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That is the way, the most basic way of doing dawah. But the question is, what do you say to those people when you meet them? Again, we can go back to what Rasulullah ﷺ said and the way he said it. And I'll come back to that. I've got a slide presentation about that. So that's the first. The second thing is through debates, like Sheikh Didat used to do. Now, debates have their place, and they are very, very effective, provided they are done in the right way. Now, today, when you look on YouTube, you'll see some debates. Those are not debates. Those are just entertainment. Those are just spectacles, just something to make people feel good about themselves and say, look, hey, this fellow demolished that fellow. That's not a debate. In fact, I still wait to see a decent debate that is conducted in a professional manner, that is conducted in an academic manner, in a civilized manner on YouTube. Typically, you'll find debates between these atheists and the Muslims, and the atheists will be arrogant. They'll be attacking Islam. They'll make statements that are nonsensical, that they can't back up with any facts, and they refuse to back up with any proofs. And then you'll get the audience cheering for them. Like in the one debate, the atheist priest, Richard Dawkins, he said something stupid, like extremely stupid for a man who's that learned. He said, Islam is a whole bunch of bad ideas. And the crowd cheered. They went wild cheering for him. What do you mean by that? Did those people who cheered, did they understand what he said? Because I don't think even he understood. I don't think even he understood what was the meaning. Can you please back up what you said with some evidence? No, he didn't. And no one asked him to. So this is why I'm saying that there are people who are so steeped in their hatred for Islam that you can go and say the stupidest thing, the most illogical thing, and they will believe it because they want to believe it. So when you get into debates, and the best place to learn debates is obviously Sheikh Didat's work, you'll notice something about his debates. You'll notice, and there's an academic rigor in the way he debated. He always debated on academic grounds. Everything he said, he brought evidence for that. He never made rhetorical statements without backup, without evidence. He never said anything that he couldn't back up with facts. He never expressed his emotions like Christianity is a whole bunch of bad ideas. He never said anything like that. But he went like in a surgical way, like how a surgeon does. With a scalpel, he went down to the matters, he unpacked those matters, and he explained it to people. Now that is a special skill. It's called critical thinking. Critical thinking is the ability to take a statement that somebody made, whether it's a verse from the Bible, whether it's a verse from any other book, and to examine it and to see, does this make sense or does it not make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, then why doesn't it make sense? What is wrong with the statement? For example, if a person says something like, Muslims are terrorists. Okay? Now, if you critically analyze that statement, you'll know it's nonsense. Why? Because Muslims, Islam is a religion, and there are 2 billion Muslims on this planet, and out of those 2 billion Muslims, 99.99999% want to just live in dignity, want to live their lives. And if you study their lives, you study their religions from the time they born till they die, you look at their parents and great-grandparents and great-grandparents, all the way back, nobody did any act of terror. So immediately that whole argument is false. But yet that is being pushed in the media. Islam is being pushed as a religion of terror. Yet again, if you look at the vast majority, go and look at Muslims in Malaysia and Indonesia and India and Arabia. Who's doing anything? People are just living their lives, struggling to bring their children up, struggling to earn a living, struggling the whole of Africa, struggling to, just live peacefully. So immediately you get a statement like that, you understand, if you are able to think critically. So first way of doing dawah is directly conversing, dialogue. Second way is through debate. There's a difference between dialogue and debate. Dialogue is two people just talking, getting to know things. And debate is now where you are addressing the issues, you're tackling the issues. And the third one, again, the third one is also from the practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is through personal example. Just without saying a word. It's what I call dawah without words. Dawah without saying or writing a single word. And if you ask me, I think his most powerful way of doing dawah was his akhlaq. I mean, what a man. Before even becoming a prophet, he was known by the non-Muslims as Al-Amin, the most trustworthy, as-Sadiq, the most truthful person. Today, in the age that we are living, this type of dawah has more potential than any of the others. Why? Let me tell you why. We as Muslims don't take time generally. I'm not talking about scholars like yourselves. I'm talking about the general Muslim. Doesn't have time to read the Quran, let alone going and read other scriptures. I mean, who goes and picks up the Bible or a book about the Bible and reads about it? Or reads a book about Hinduism or atheism or whatever ism is out there. So people are not reading. So if you're going to write something, people are generally not reading. If you are going to give a speech, people are not finding that kind of thing interesting anymore. Because we're living in an age where people are, they're too busy with social media. Debates, on the other hand, don't have the effect that they used to. Debates, just some of them do, but a lot of them don't have the effect, because in a typical debate today, what you're going to get is people who are biased on this side and people who are biased on that side. And all they see a debate as is throwing stones at each other. There's none of that willingness to come and learn. There's none of that willingness to step back and understand, perhaps I was wrong. People just don't admit that anymore. People have just gone too arrogant. Admitting that you made a mistake is a sign of weakness. So debates, limited success. But the opportunity to do dawah through your actions, that is golden. That is golden, and that is what the world needs right now more than anything else. Because as I said earlier, and here's my logic, here's why I'm saying that, and I'm talking from personal example here. You see, China has about 100 million Muslims. How did those people actually become Muslims? Let me explain to you. They became Muslims because some of the Sahaba and people just after the Sahaba's time went to China to do business. And they settled there and they did business there. That's all. And through their business dealings, through that business dealings, people saw the beauty of these people's character. They were just, they were truthful, they were trustworthy. See, Al-Amin, As-Sadiq, they were good business people. Whereas their own business people were cheating them and robbing them, the Muslim business people were always just and fair with them. You know, in today's times, wherever there's scarcity, what you'll get inflation, right? Even things like water, they'll make it so expensive that people can't buy it. But in the time of Islam, in the time of Sharia, under Sharia law, that was haram, that was forbidden. You can't do that. You were not allowed to do that. So these Arab traders, all they did was follow the Sharia. They never inflated prices. When people came back and said, I don't want this thing, I want my money back, they gave the money back. They never sold grain that was wet so that it weighs more. They were just. And through that justice, over time, people started becoming more and more inclined, and they accepted Islam. And not just one or two, 100 million people in China today are Muslims. So Islam is a force in China. It's a force to be reckoned with. And from there, Islam spread to Indonesia and Malaysia, which are today combined the most populous Muslim countries in the world. There's more Muslims in those two countries than anywhere else in the world. Not even in the Arab countries do you get so many Muslims. Let's give another example. Another example is of Spain, Islamic Spain. And this is something you must read about, because Islamic Spain has been deliberately deleted from the history books. The Europeans don't want you to know about such a thing as Islamic Spain. They hate that idea. They hate that for 700 years Muslims ruled Spain. They hate that that was the pinnacle of human civilization, when justice, freedom, equality, everything was there, when all people of all races and all religions, Muslims, Jews, Christians, black, white, Indian, Arab, everybody lived peacefully and everybody thrived. The Europeans want to see themselves as the pinnacle of creation, as the pinnacle of civilization. They don't want to see a Muslim country as that. But anyways, let's go back to Muslim Spain. How did Muslims conquer Spain? There's a big question. Did Muslims conquer Spain with a sword? No. Here's how Muslims conquered Spain. You see, there were tiny little settlements in the southern parts of Spain that Muslims lived in. And they had their own chiefs and their own rulers. These were people from North Africa, right? These were what they called the Moors, which is very interesting for all Africans, because these were Moors. These were African, pure African people that settled up there, and they lived there, and they traded there. And what these Europeans saw was that these people lived peacefully. Their leaders were benevolent, kind, just leaders. They looked after their people. They cared for them. But here, we've got, in the Christian lands, we've got horrible leaders. People who are, firstly, they are uneducated, lowest of the low, racist, unjust, greedy. I'm not talking about Donald Trump, yeah, right? But I am talking about Donald Trump. And I'm talking about pretty much every Western leader. Because things haven't changed. Their leaders were like that, and they were making zulm on their own people. So Christian leaders were oppressing the Christian people. Right. So then what happened was, when they saw this, they started to hate their own leaders. And so when Abdurrahman the First was, he ran away from Syria because his family was murdered. He was from the Umayyads. So when he came to Spain, the Christians came up to him and they said to him, see, Abdurrahman, We know you're a just person. We saw what your family did in Syria, with what justice they ruled. And we are seeing these Muslim leaders ruling with justice here. We want you to be our leader. And that's how Islam spread in Spain. So Abdurrahman and his army just walked through Spain. There was hardly any battle. There were just skirmishes. He walked through Spain and people said, take it, be our leader. And he went right till the outskirts of Paris. So it wasn't just Spain. It was pretty much a big chunk of Europe. People just said, come and be our leader. We want you to be our leader. This is the beauty of akhlaq. This is the beauty of the akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is all these people reflected. They didn't reflect anything else. They didn't invent anything. They just acted as their master Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our master Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have acted. That's it. Right. So today, bringing it to today's times, look at people's situation today. People even in Western countries are struggling. Every race. Trust me when I tell you. I speak to people of every race. If you look in America, 1% of the population control the wealth of the country. And the general people, no matter your race, religion, they are getting poorer and poorer and poorer. Things are getting tougher and tougher and tougher for them. They are treated like slaves. This whole religion of consumerism, just keep buying stuff. People are unhappy. People are depressed. About a month ago, I was in Singapore. Now, Singapore is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. It's a tiny little island, but it's so wealthy. They built up such a strong economy. But every day, not every month, every day there are 2 suicides in Singapore. 2 people are killing themselves. Why would people in such a wealthy country kill themselves? They got everything. When you look at their streets are immaculate. If you look at the city, the buildings, everything is immaculate. They are earning more money than anyone else in the world. Why? It's because they are suffering inside. They are suffering from stress. They are suffering from anxiety. They don't have any spirituality. They left all that part out, the spirituality out, and they went only for economics. And now they're realizing that we're missing something in our lives. You know, it's like a person who works his whole life to become wealthy, but he doesn't take care of his health, doesn't take care of his family. And one day when he's wealthy, he's too sick to enjoy that wealth. He's got no one around him. His wife and children are all gone. It's like that. So the spirituality is not there. So guys, people need guidance. They need help in different ways. Education, economics, you name it. What we need to do as Muslims is to take to social media. Stop being afraid of technology. Don't be afraid of technology. Technology is a powerful tool in your hands. And I'll conclude on this. I know the whole talk is supposed to be about technology, but I have to set the tone. And trust me when I tell you, most of you know technology better than even I do. I don't even know how to find my way around Facebook, honestly. Really, you'll think I'm lying. You'll also think I'm lying when I tell you with all truthfulness, I haven't been on TikTok in months. So some of you might say, hey, but Bilal, we just saw a video of yours the other day. Yesterday a video was posted and you've got like 100,000 followers on TikTok. Yeah, that's all true. But what I do is I record my videos and I send them to my video editor, who I meet like maybe twice or thrice in a year. She edits them, puts the captions, posts them. That's it. They are on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. So I'm on pretty much every social network, but I don't have time to go sit and scroll. There's no time. When you're running a business and you're studying so many things, there's no time for social media. So I use this tool. I don't let it use me. Yet there are people who I know who spend 4 or 5 hours at a time sitting on TikTok and just watching short form videos. And they think they're learning something. I don't know. So don't get caught in that trap. I understand when certain people, when ulama say that social media can be a trap. Yes, it can be a trap. It can be very addictive. But it's up to you as a living, thinking Muslim, as an intelligent Muslim, to know I cannot let this thing own me. I will own it. So what do you need to do? You need to create content. You need to put out valuable content that people will learn from. Whatever is your expertise. If you are good at computers, you're good at coding, you're good at farming, you're good at something, teach people. And in that way, you will gain a following. And even if you're not good at anything, just talk to people about happiness, about morality, about fulfillment, and see how people will cling to you. And especially in this country, people are dying for guidance. When I put out videos, who are it's non-Muslims, it's Christians. One guy sent me a message the other day. He started the message with this line here. He says, my leader, a non-Muslim youngster, my leader. That's what he called me. When a person calls you that, especially when an African person calls you that, that shows this person is loyal to you for life. Because the people in Africa, especially here in South Africa, I know that about them, that they are loyal for life. You guys are very loyal people. So this person called me that. And what do I talk about? Okay, I teach them about business. I teach them about IT, about computers. And sometimes I talk about parenting, about my own challenges with parenting and how I overcame that. So sometimes you don't even talk anything religious. You don't talk about Islam. You just give people value in other ways. In that way, you will become the leader. And they will follow you. And they will accept whatever you have to say to them. And because you are on the haqq, because you are on the truth, then that will be a way that it will resonate with them. It will resonate with them. It will say, you know what? This was a Muslim that did this for me. And I'll conclude with one more story. Last week, Saturday, I met with a couple of young black entrepreneurs in Durban. I even put a post on LinkedIn about that. They wanted some advice from me about their business. That youngster in particular, this guy has been running his business for like the past 8 years, and I've been with him from the start, advising him, guiding him, helping him in any way. Look, it doesn't cost me anything. It doesn't cost me time. It doesn't cost me money. Whenever I can, I meet with him, I give him advice, even if it's just a voice note sometimes. But that day I met with them, and I was giving them advice. And out of the blue, towards the end of the meeting, that young lady said to me, she said, you know, I really admire you Muslims. Now, I never said anything about Islam throughout that meeting or anything. She wanted to get this out, to say it. She said, you know, your religion is so much better than Christianity. I noticed that come Fridays, when it's time for mosque, you close your shops. No matter how busy it is, you'll close your shop and you'll go to mosque. Us Christians never do that. And she went on to explain other things about Islam that she admires. And I was, wow, this person did some research about Muslims. She's been observing Muslims. And hopefully, Allah knows best, through my actions, maybe Allah will give her guidance towards Islam. I won't know about it. On the day of Qiyamah, I'll see her standing there in the line as a Muslim, and I'll say, whoa, I didn't know you were a Muslim. And hopefully she'll tell me, you know, it was through your example that I was guided to Islam and I became a Muslim. Hopefully, inshallah. With those few words, I will conclude, and we'll open up for questions and answers. And I will have to stop in 9 minutes time, because I've got a radio interview coming up. So Maulana, I'm going to open up for questions. I'm looking at the picture, mashallah, what a beautiful audience. I wish I was there. It's just I'm out of Durban right now. Look at that beautiful picture of Sheikh Din right there in front. You guys are beautiful. You guys are absolutely beautiful. What a crowd. I wish I was there to shake your hands. Let me share my contact details. I'll put it up on the screen now. Okay, it's not allowing me, but nonetheless, Maulana, what I'll do is I'll send you all my social media handles as well as my email address. And if anybody has follow-up questions, please feel free to ask me. Anybody wants some advice, even if it's business advice, I'm right here, guys. I'm always here for you guys.
All right, you can put it on the screen now. I made you host.
Okay, here's my contact details. Are you seeing it?
Yes, we can see it.
I just want to conclude by saying that in our day-to-day lives as Muslim, every single act that we do is an opportunity for dawah. When we do everything as a mission, when we do it with this mission to guide people, then every action of ours becomes an action that's made out of gold. It becomes that action that is full of meaning. It becomes that action that is rewarding and full of reward from Allah Ta'ala. But also very importantly, today people struggle with mental health issues. People struggle with depression. People struggle with anxiety. People struggle with boredom, right? They struggle with their mundane jobs, like a teacher going to work every day, a nurse going to work, a shopkeeper going to work. People get bored. But if you change your niyat, you change your intention, and that teacher that's going is now renews his intention and says, I'm going to do this for the pleasure of Allah. I'm going to do this to guide people. Or you're a nurse. I'm going there, I'm going to do my job to the best of my abilities, and I'm going to do this for the guidance of mankind. Now, when you do that, no matter what job you are doing, you could be the world's greatest surgeon, you could be the world's greatest IT person, or you could be a person that's just got a little table on the street there selling sweets. All of you, your niyat becomes golden. That's what brings that acceptance from Allah Ta'ala. So it's good for this world and the next. It's good for us and for those around us. It's good for our spiritual health as well as our mental health. So just keep that in mind, guys. It gives us renewed motivation when we want to do any good act. So change your intention. As of today, no matter what you do, every act that you do is going to be an act that is deliberate to guide people towards the good.
Jazakallah, Bilal.
Ameen. Ameen. Jazakallah for the opportunity. Assalamu alaikum.
قرآني نبض حياتي، قرآني طهر ذاتي، قرآني عصمة أمري، قرآني طوق نجاتي. قرآني نبض حياتي، قرآني طهر ذاتي، قرآني عصمة أمري، قرآني طوق نجاتي. آيات الله حمتني غمرتني بالبركات، تحفظني من همزات الشيطان ومن زلاتي. آيات الله حمتني غمرتني بالبركات، تحفظني من همزات الشيطان ومن زلاتي. قرآني نبض حياتي، قرآني طهر ذاتي، قرآني عصمة أمري، قرآني